the co-organizer with the High Commission of India here. So Mahfouz is also here, and he will also share his perspectives. So friends, we know that bilateral cooperation between India and Bangladesh has been advancing in various fronts, and we have heard about trade connectivity, investment connectivity, people-to-people connectivity, transport connectivity, logistics connectivity. So all these connectivities, the confluence of these connectivities should take us forward. But there are also irritants. We know that we are not being able to realize the potentials of what is happening. And we have to do more, both in terms of our own homework, I think, but also in terms of deepening the bilateral cooperation. Although Bangladesh's export to India is increasing, and it has crossed $1 billion in the last fiscal year, it was $1.2 billion. Our imports were $7.7 billion. Sometimes we talk about bilateral deficit with India. I think that in a globalized world, bilateral deficit is not a major concern. It is the overall deficit, global deficit. We have a bilateral deficit with India, and we import a lot of materials from India, and it benefits our consumers, it benefits our exporters, it benefits our entrepreneurs. And thanks to that deficit, we have a bilateral surplus of $5 billion with the United States, because we import from India and then make our ready-made garments and export to the United States. The problem, I think, is that we are not being able to realize our export potentials. $1.2 billion is peanuts. India last year imported $514 billion. And this $1.2 billion was 1/5 of 1% of India's import. So what is happening? India, it's not that India is not importing, but India is not importing from Bangladesh. Where are the irritants? How can we take advantage of this rise of India in the 21st century in order to make it work for development of our own country in the imagination of the martyrs of our liberation war? For a Bangladesh, we should be economically developed, socially inclusive, and environmentally sustainable. So I would like to first of all request Dr. Mahfouz to set the ball rolling, to present before us some of the stylized facts with regard to Bangladesh-India bilateral relationship in the context of trade and investment, and perhaps also connectivity, and then we can take the discussion forward. And I will request our panelists to come up with 3-4 minutes of initial remarks, and then I will go back to you. Please listen carefully so that you can also ask them pointed questions, and we can have a very fruitful discussion, interactive discussion. So Mahfouz, your 5 minutes, okay?
Thank you very much, Professor Mustafizur Rahman, distinguished fellow, Center for Policy Dialogue, today's moderator, and then Mr. Nahin Razak, MP, and then Ms. Sabashachi Datta, Joyita Bhattacharya, and distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, I will be speaking on the Bangladesh-India trade, investment, connectivity, and overall cooperation in terms of economy and connectivity. So basically it's a Bangladesh perspective, and if you carefully in fact observe the development over the last year, then you will find that there is a timeline of cooperation right after the election in India. So in Indian Prime Minister's office there is a kind of statement regarding Bangladesh and India relationship, and there is a specific, determination in terms of deepening the partnership. And there are basically 5 areas of cooperation. One is security. Definitely now security is multi-dimensional. It's not only the traditional security but also the economic security and a lot of other things that are included. And then trade, transportation, energy, and people-to-people contact. So and what is the timeline? This timeline is basically 3 years, starting from 2019. And what is the last year? It's 2021, when Bangladesh will celebrate its 50th anniversary of independence. So it's very clearly determined the areas and also the timeline that has been in fact, elaborated in the Prime Minister's office. And what are the enabling factors that if you carefully understand, it's basically the rapid economic growth and development that Bangladesh is experiencing now, 8+% of growth, and it's a huge opportunity and which is unfolding in Bangladesh economy. And then trade within the value chain. If you see the kind of, in fact, integration in the area of trade, then definitely in the upstream, there is in fact, textile and Bangladesh's clothing, and there is a huge value chain engagement, which is a global value chain, textile and clothing. And then geographical proximity and common borders. So these are the factors, and also the, in fact, kind of taste and preferences between the two countries. And also the expanding trade complementarity. So traditionally we talk about the competitive, in fact, kind of, and we have the same basket, but now it's complementing kind of. And if you see the kind of trading pattern, so you can see that, as already discussed by the moderators, it's now 1.25 billion US dollars export in the last fiscal year, but it's increasing. And if we see the kind of growth rate over the last 2 years, it's really promising. And in the last fiscal year, it was about 28% of growth. And if we continue with this growth, then it will be more than, in fact, 3 billion US dollars exporting in India, and the trade deficit will in fact decline. But there is a huge untapped trade potential. I mean, now according to the latest estimate of the World Bank, its untapped trade potential is about 10 billion US dollars. It's regarding it's based on the 2015 and 16 in fact estimate. And if we see the kind of trading pattern, then you will see that in fact that merchandise trade and the trading goods is dominating. So and also the services export is also increasing. So it's quite promising. It's about 500 million US dollars services export. And if we see that the pattern of export, and according to the latest data of the Bangladesh Bank, is basically the office maintenance is the number one. It's 40% of the total services export to India, and others like the tourists and in fact there's a huge people-to-people contact, and because of that we are now exporting. And in terms of imports of services from India, it's basically the electricity. In fact, electricity transmission service is number one. It's about, in fact, 30%, and then there are others like it's a huge basket of in fact services import that we have in India. And if we see the kind of products that we trade, is basically we are importing the, in fact, raw materials and intermediate goods from India, and which includes the HS code 60, 61, 62, and also to some extent, I mean, the home textile and other new textiles that are coming in, and also jute. Even though we have a kind of, in fact, outs factor, I would say, in terms of exporting jute to India because of the anti-dumping duty, but definitely, so there might be some of the other issues, but non-tariff barriers. That is basically the issue that we are discussing with, and that is even because the tariff barrier is not that important factor right now. So non-tariff barriers. So lot of things like, I mean, there is a kind of actual non-tariff barriers as well as the passive non-tariff barriers. So in many of the cases, traders don't understand the kind of non-tariff barriers, and they have the perception that the Indian market is not that favorable, even though there is a kind of, I mean, the relaxation in terms of accessing market through removing the tariff barriers. So basically, if we consider this issue, I mean, the dynamics, so if we continue the growth rate of exports to India, then, I mean, addressing the, in fact, barriers to export would be the most important thing, and we have to address the non-tariff barriers. And if we want to address the non-tariff barriers, definitely both of the parties should come together. I mean, it's not that just we are just raising the voice, but if there is a committee, I mean, the high-level committee comprising the government officials and also the traders and other experts, then we can identify and we can help the policymakers to address this. I mean, we have to know actually what is happening in terms of non-tariff barriers, and then we have to address the issue. And other thing is, if you already know that we in fact dedicated special economic zones for India, and basically in terms of, I mean, the preferences of the investors, then we don't find that the investors are interested in investing in the textile and clothing, basically in the special economic zones. They have interest in other areas, and that is good, because we have to diversify our investment. So we also welcome the investment in diversified areas from India, so that we can also target the Indian market. It's a growing Indian market, so and the economy will vibrate and the employment will be generated. And also vis-a-vis the development in the special economic zones, there is an opportunity to create kind of tourism. So if there is a tourism kind of hub surrounding the SEZ, and India has a huge, in fact, specialization in tourism. So it's one of the major, in fact, tourist destinations. So India can help us. So there is a need for technical cooperation, and also accessing the Indian market needs standardization. So now we have the SARSO, so it's a regional kind of cooperation body. So, and also there is a need for strengthening the cooperation between BIS and also BSCI. So it's already taking place, but we need to include more products within the basket, so that we have the common standard, so that we can export to the Indian market as well as we can export the international market. So standardization is required, and there are a lot of problems in the testing facility, certification and health issue, quarantine facility. So there are a lot of issues in which both the countries can in fact cooperate. So that is very important. And if you see the kind of in fact flow of investment, then we can see it's awful that in the last fiscal year it was this. India's position was the 7th, but now it's 8th position. And what is the amount? So in the fiscal year 2017 and 18, it was 125 million, and in this fiscal year it's 130. So it's declining. So we need more investment. So we are dedicating the SEZ, and there are a lot of other facilities. So in fact, definitely the Indian authorities can definitely try to explore. And the issues like the investment in the other areas, developing public infrastructure, rail link and also the road link. So there are a lot of, in fact, investment is coming from the government channel. So we need to optimize. We need to create infrastructure in a way that it creates kind of linkage between the two countries and also the underdeveloped northeastern part. So we have to have kind of linkage, the infrastructure and trade facilitation, so that we can have better connectivity with the northeastern state and business relationship with that. So now business is happening, but if we have more facilitation, improved kind of, in fact, port facilities, then definitely it will have a kind of positive impact on the bilateral trade issues. And the other two issues that we really need to, in fact, address, which is one is the coastal shipping agreement. So it has been signed back in 2015, but it's not being implemented that vigorously. So it has a huge potential. Sometimes a huge queue, long queue in the Benaport Petrapol, in fact, port. But if we can have a kind of leverage by executing, by implementing the coastal shipping agreement, then it will definitely create a positive impact on the trade between the two countries. And definitely technical cooperation, in fact, in all sorts of the areas. They definitely in the non-tariff barriers, addressing the non-tariff barriers, and also there is another thing that we need to seriously take into account, which is the, in fact, graduation from LDCs. Bangladesh is going to graduate from the LDCs in 2024. So the in fact facility that Bangladesh is getting in the Indian market, the duty-free access, so it's going to be hampered. So we have to, in fact, start trade negotiation. So there might be a special kind of trading agreement with India, so that the Bangladesh products can in fact continue to get duty-free access. So we have to start. In fact, it's not that far. Just 3 years that we have. So if we start negotiation, start discussion in India, definitely India wants more trade with Bangladesh. So it's a political commitment. So that we have from the both sides. So we have to have the kind of more cooperation in trade, investment, in fact other areas of technical cooperation, so that we can have a better friendship in terms of economic area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahfouz. I think Mahfouz has helped us to set the context of our discussion, and he has drawn our attention to a number of issues. The moot question, I think, is that in spite of the fact that India has been giving us duty-free, quota-free market access for all products, barring 25, drugs, arms, alcohol, etc., But in spite of that, why we are not being able to realize the potentials? And he has mentioned about non-tariff barriers, which we will also hear. But what exactly are those non-tariff barriers? I think this is very important. Many of these non-tariff barriers are related with infrastructural bottlenecks, trade facilitation. I think these we can address through more deepening of our connectivities. The other non-tariff barriers which Mahfouz mentioned about standard certification, laboratory testing, I think that what we need is mutual recognition of standards, which we have been arguing for many years. I think that is the way to go forward, and Mahfouz has very rightly mentioned about the potentials of the investment that we have. So in attracting Indian investment, taking advantage of the duty-free, quota-free market access and exporting to India, I think that is the way to go forward. And that will also help us to develop the networks, production networks and value chains between our two countries, which will also help us to have strengthened global integration for Bangladesh and for India as well. But he has mentioned about connectivity, and I have on my right side Shoboshati, who has worked on these issues. And also we have to remember that when political borderlines are drawn, often these do not follow the commonalities of the resources that we have, like river. So how do you address those issues in a more collaborative and cooperative manner? I think that becomes very important. And for Bangladesh and India is much more important than perhaps for many other countries. So I request Shoboshati to share in very briefly in 3-4 minutes, and you will have opportunity to come back. So how do you look at taking advantage of these commonalities of our resources in order to have win-win solutions?
Thank you, Chair. May I start off by saying that it's such an honor to be here just before the Mujib Barsho celebrations start. It's indeed an honor here. Talking of connectivity, I think at one level we fail to realize how connected we are. And when I say that, I'd like to just point out that we often fail to realize that we are at the cusp of a mountain to sea ecosystem. If you see Bangladesh along with its immediate neighbors in India, and the Bay of Bengal in the south and the Himalayas in the north, essentially it is one ecosystem. The same waters, the same rivers, the same sediment, what comes up from the top comes here. What happens here, what rains collect, the moisture that collects here, hits the hills of Meghalaya and makes it the heaviest rainfall in the world. So we are connected beyond the realm of man. There are animal corridors, plant corridors, seed corridors, and as we together address climate change and issues which are overarching, I think this intrinsic connectivity needs to be appreciated. We know it, but we sometimes don't know it also. For example, there are a lot of rocks from India which come down the river, and then there's a lot of mining of sand here. What happens to the river because of that? What happens to upstream interventions? What happens to downstream interventions? Those need to be addressed. The second, of course, is that the second type of connectivity, I think it was well worked out, was that we are going to a pre-partition level of connectivity. Railway connectivity is going to be pre-partition plus. We have air connectivity. India and Bangladesh are linked by India's national knowledge network. We have e-connectivity. So there are many connectivities, and we can treat it as a given. And even things like trade facilitation and many of the infrastructural barriers at the borders that you alluded to can be dealt with, I think, with this enhanced level of connectivity, which I am very hopeful is work under progress. But assuming that that connectivity is a matter of time, the bigger question I think we need to ask is what do we do with that connectivity? And which brings me to my third point, which is I think we need to connect more at the level of the mind, at the level of the heart. It is like a family. India and Bangladesh is like a family, and if there is something in the family, we need to engage much more, talk to each other much more. And there are, I think, 2 or 3 ways in which we can. One is, I think, an appreciation of our shared history, our shared culture through special interest tourism. Can we not have a Tagore circuit? Tagore wrote his last poem in Meghalaya. Tagore's legacy lies in Bangladesh. Can we not engage between India and Bangladesh in a Rabindranath Tagore tourism circuit? For example, I'm giving you. Can we not talk about ecotourism circuits between the waterfalls of Meghalaya and the swamps of Sylhet? Special interest tourism for the nature avid lovers, enthusiasts. Things which, give us an added appreciation of our shared culture, our shared values, our shared ecology, our shared history, and our shared destiny. And my last point is, if we have those kind of tourism, I think another sector would very much grow, which is taking complementarity of this ecological, there are so many climate patterns in this, and all are complementary. What grows in the hills of Northeast India is not found here. What can be processed here cannot be processed there. So there is a year-round supply of agro and agri-horti chains, value chains could be thought of as an added sector to kind of address this trade gap that we're talking about here. And lastly, I think, for that, how do we ensure linking institutions, linking individuals who can connect entrepreneurs, connect stakeholders, connect policymakers, not at the very top, which is already happening. I think the Foreign Secretary talked about 75 dialogues which happen between India and Bangladesh, but much more at a ground level, between the districts and the bordering districts. Can civil society talk to each other? Can cultural organizations talk to each other? And I think that's the way forward, to kind of unleash a new ecosystem of engagement. And one level of engagement leads to a deeper level of bonding, deeper level of trust. That leads to business. Business leads to an impetus to remove the trade barriers and the non-tariff and the infrastructural deficits that. So I would just regulate my comments to this much for now.
Thank you so much, Shobhoshachi. I think that you have taken our discourse beyond what we generally discuss, trade, investment, but you have mentioned about the common resources that we have, the common ecosystem. You have also mentioned about the internet, which is also we can, and you have also mentioned about the complementarities. But having said that, obviously the common resources also and the common river basin management is also become very important. Whilst we have common resources, there are also conflicting interests or complementing interests. For example, the upper riparian country versus the lower riparian country. India itself shares Brahmaputra with China, which is China is the upper riparian country and India is a lower riparian country. So I think that those interests will have to be addressed, and we are very happy, and we have heard in the morning the Foreign Secretary of India telling that the TISTA negotiations which started in August 2019 is making progress, and we will be very much hoping forward to a positive statement when the Honorable Prime Minister of India will be visiting in connection with the birth centenary of Bangabandhu. So I think that this is very important that, that these common resources are explored, exploited, taken advantage of through a collective approach. And thank you very much for reinforcing that. I will now request Joyita the ORF, the Observer Foundation, their center is working on a number of issues. In one of the recent works that I have seen, they have also situated Indo-Bangladesh relationship in the broader context of SAARC, and also whether SAARC or BIMSTEC is the best way to go forward. So I think that whilst we can talk about bilateral relationship between India and Bangladesh, it is also situated in a broader context of South Asia, and I would like to mention also maybe Southern Asia, which includes also China. So from that broader perspective, and given the geographical situation of Bangladesh, Joyita, would you please share with us, how do you look at regional cooperation, and in that context, how to deepen by our bilateral relationship by taking advantage of that regional cooperation? And I mean not only SAARC, but also perhaps BIMSTEC and more Southern Asian cooperation, the broader, yeah.
Thank you very much. First, I would really want to, when I'm sitting here, and one song that I used to listen a lot when I was a very young probably a toddler. And why I'm saying so, because this is Muji Borsho, and probably another year Bangladesh will be going for 50 years. And that song was Ekti Muji Burer Konte, Lokho Muji Borer Dhuni, Akashe Batase Uthe Roni. And now, while coming, I saw a WAF report why Bangladesh has done so well. And I see that beautiful Shonar, the dream of Shonar Bangla, that Bangabandhu has seen and he dreamt of, and today Bangladesh is realizing. So it is those thousand and Lokho Mujibur, his dream, Bangabandhu's dream, that people of Bangladesh is realizing. And I feel very proud. And here, sir, I would try to talk about connectivity. This is actually this connectivity that makes India-Bangladesh relations great. My colleague Shabbasachi has perfectly said that we have to connect our mind. Actually, our mind is connected. Only we don't realize when we go abroad and when we talk about Bangladesh shining. I, as a South Asian, find it a wonderful opportunity. So this is the crux, how we should go forward. And absolutely, our destinies are tied together. And Bangladesh and India is located at a point that if we are talking about the overall growth prospect, we have to think about the region. And I think when it comes to India-Bangladesh relationship, bilateralism is a focus, definitely, but it also looks into the entire sub-region as such. And one of the major focus initiatives that we really look into is that BBIN. That really talks about the thinking is very much there, how we can progress and take it forward. Definitely, when we are talking about connectivity, bilateralism is important, but the overall South Asia is located in a situation, it has been the focus because one, I think two big connectivity routes that we talk about, one is the Buddhism, and second is the spice route, and South Asia is the center of that. So if we really want to take the benefit of that process, and I think government of India also realizes the process, the BBIN connectivity we are talking about BIMSTEC, it's all talking about the region together, and that's how and the work actually has begun from Bangladesh. The kind of projects we are implementing in India, it is going to have that larger context. We have that in mind. So it is a very positive beginning that has happened. And also the neighborhood first policy, and Bangladesh is the center of our neighborhood first policy. So a very positive beginning. It's a very cooperative approach, I would say, both from Bangladesh side and Indian side. that we are going hand in hand. We have fought our liberation, Bangladesh's liberation together, that changed the history of South Asia, and we are also trying to move forward to change the destiny of South Asia together, because integration and connectivity, if we are talking of regional connectivity, ultimately the focus is to have the growth together. So we are committed to it, and I think, but there are issues already has been, but when we have the right intent and we have content together, we can really change our destiny. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyita. I think that you have very succinctly presented the vision that we both in our countries we aspire to, which is to have a very strong bilateral relationship which will be foundational to also broader relationships in the South Asia. And also you have mentioned about BBIN motor vehicle agreement. We hope that the standard operating protocols will be finalized. It is now being worked out, and we will have operationalized it very soon. It's taking more time than it should, I must say. But hopefully this will be very important. As you said, it could be also used for religious tourism and other connectivities as well. And BMSTEC, you have mentioned very rightly, I think BMSTEC free trade agreement which is being negotiated, we understand that the goods negotiation has been completed and it will be signed very soon. And BMSTEC will give Bangladesh, taking advantage of deeper cooperation with India and other countries, a foothold in ASEAN. So from our perspective, this is also very important. Thank you very much for drawing our attention to that as well. I will now come to our Honorable Member of Parliament. As a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, Naheem must be looking at our bilateral relationship from a broader perspective. As was mentioned in the inaugural, that for India, neighborhood first, and Bangladesh comes first in that neighborhood first. So this is very important perspective. On the other hand, we also know that Bangladesh is pursuing deepening of economic cooperation with other countries, particularly with China as well. So sometimes people, put these two in a sort of a either-or perspective. But do you think, Naheem, that it can be also mutually strengthening from a broader perspective of regional cooperation, that we can complement the India-Bangladesh relationship in that broader aspect with relationship with other countries as well? So what is your perspective? You are representing the 21st century, as our others, we are from the 20th century. I'm speaking about myself. So Naeem, what is your perspective as a citizen of the 21st century? Forward-looking perspective, yeah.
Thank you so much. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers for putting up such a wonderful event. And of course, this is the first seminar being held or dialogue being held between the relationship between Bangladesh and India on the first of many to go forward in the year of Muji Borsho. So I would like to thank BIIS and the Indian High Commissioner for actually organizing this. Of course, we are here. I get to see a lot of policymakers, politicians, academies, stakeholders, business personalities, former diplomats. Hence, I don't want to indulge in informing about the facts and figures between Bangladesh and India. But looking from a broader perspective, in a globalized world right now, we need to engage in multilateral and bilateral relations. So when we talk about multilateral engagements, we have to talk about Bangladesh and India working together in terms of putting their footprint in the global aspect and global issues. So these are very important issues. When we talk about climate change, we talk about regional and sub-regional securities. Bangladesh and India is in par and working together. In the last 10, 11 years, we have had tremendous success in these two fortes, into these two areas especially. And now when we talk about bilaterals, now bilateral engagements are mostly done between countries to countries, so to enhance geo-economical prospect of it, business. When we talk about securities, we talk about connectivity. Hence, it is a national interest when we look for first. So the question that has been put forward, of course, Bangladesh and India has a very deep-rooted relationship. Since the inception of the independence of Bangladesh, with the help and assistance from the Indian citizens and the government itself, it's a people-to-people connection that we inherited from the subcontinent. So it is a long history of strong relationship that we already have. Now, going forward, we have to look into people-to-people connection, and I think one of the core elements that we have to work is information, the exchange of information. I think there is a lack in terms of information in both ends. There is definitely strengthened relationship in terms of trust, because we have to see ourselves as equals. Because to build a partnership, we have to trust each other, we have to support each other, and also have to allow each other to actually explore different avenues. Now, of course, today in the keynote presentation, the Honorable Secretary of the External Affairs Ministry of India, who is of course a dear friend of ours because he has been the High Commissioner of India in Bangladesh, so of course he has in-depth knowledge. He's mentioned that we have had a lot of discussion dialogues, but what we now really need to think about is how we can materialize those commitments. And in a broader context, we cannot ignore China in the Asian context. This is the generation and this is the age of the Asians. And the Asians are the ones who should and would actually be taking big leaps and forth in the global context. Now, China is a big player. It's the second largest economy in the world, of course. So hence, everyone has relationship with China in terms, and they want to build relationship, especially in terms of trade and commerce. We want to build relationship because there is ample opportunities. India, for instance, has a huge trade relations with China. You know, they have a huge relationship, and in fact, India and China in fact is the largest stakeholder in terms of export from China to India. So of course we need to look into those aspects, and on a broader context, I've just written down a couple of notes, and I want to take more kind of time for the audience to engage and indulge in what are the challenges and how we can resolve the challenges. So this is one aspect I think from this dialogue we want to take forward. So we have connectivity. So connectivity in the terms of road, rail, water, and so forth. On the other, trade and commerce. When we talk about trade and commerce, unfortunately there is a trade deficit from Bangladesh's end, but there are scopes. Although there are tariff being put forward, and also trade tariffs agreements being done between Bangladesh and India, but we are not seeing enough investment from Bangladeshi business communities in India. Maybe there are challenges. So hence, the business community needs to engage more. The government needs to, the government of Bangladesh and India needs to facilitate more so that there is ease of doing business. Otherwise, there is no point in actually talking about trade and commerce. We cannot just import and import and import. We also need to export. And since our immediate neighbor and a good neighbor is India, so this is a market, and especially in the Seven Sisters, when we talk about the Indian Northeast, there is ample opportunities for Bangladesh and Bangladeshi business houses to make leapfrogs in terms of investment. So that's another part to it. We talk about now tradings. Now we are doing huge trading in terms of energy, but also we need to look forward in terms of regional joint collaboration and joint investment. Like in Nepal. Nepal has a hydropower capacity of 40,000 megawatts. Now Bangladesh has already shown interest in 12 projects in Nepal, but also India needs to be in alignment, because the connecting through the transmission needs to go through India. So there needs to be an alignment. So there needs to be a working group. I think there is already a working group. I think we need to take forward in terms of trading. So trading is another aspect of it. Joint collaboration is something that we need to especially work on it. Then there is security issues. Of course, we cannot ignore India, because on three aspects, on three sides of Bangladesh is Indian borders. So we need to collaborate. In the last 10, 11 years, we have had tremendous success in terms of ensuring regional security. And this is one of the foremost importance and one of the most important aspect in the global security issues. Right now we are talking about Islamic fundamentalism. We are talking about the spread of regional terror networks. So those aspects, Bangladesh and India has collaborated, and not only collaborated on the borders, but also shared information. And there is another aspect that we need to talk about is cyber security. This is something that we haven't actually talked about too much. But cyber security, cross-border cyber security is one of the key issues that we need to actually look forward in the coming days in terms of Bangladesh and India relations. And then finally, we need to talk about people-to-people connection. That's what we mentioned. There needs to be more engagement on all aspects, because this is a boundary between Bangladesh and India, but of course there are concerns, and because what happens in Bangladesh, of course, the Indian government and the people of India would be concerned about, and similarly, what happens in India, although it may be of their initial internal matter, but Bangladeshi and the Bangladesh government is also concerned. So we need to have an exchange of information. There needs to be more people-to-people connection, so that we can clarify and make up ease into our relationship, because these sort of tension builds up, and people-to-people connection lacking of those information gaps creates tension between the people of those two countries. And finally, we need to talk about on the global scenario. We have, of course, Joyita had mentioned about BIMSTEC, BBIN, and so forth, and so forth. But then again, we have to explore, and we have to see, all Bangladeshis and Indians need to see the potential of the geo-economical aspect and the relationship between Bangladesh and the region and on the greater Asian circle, because we need to explore the old Silk Route, what we talk about, the old Silk Route, the Asian highway, that will create more kind of opportunities for both Bangladesh and India, if it may, and it has to actually include China, but there should not be any sort of information gap between Bangladesh and India, or the people, that there is a tension. So we need to explore, and we need to be transparent, and we need to see that we all share a common ground in terms of the prosperity. And of course, next year is the 50th independence of Bangladesh, and this is a time the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, she and the people of Bangladesh has greater aspiration, and we want to build great partnership between our regional friends and the global circle. So I want to actually take this opportunity to actually request all the eminent personnel. I can see a lot of people, of course I know a lot of them personally, to give us a context how we can take this relationship further, and what are the challenges that exist, and how we can take it further. And not only to mention that time is of essence. We need to work fast, we need to work efficiently, so that we all benefit from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Naheem. It's very good to see our young parliamentarians thinking about the issues which matter, and your perspectives on other dimensions of bilateral cooperation and how that can strengthen our regional cooperation and also Southern Asian cooperation. These are very well taken. Thank you very much, and your perspectives on some of the new issues such as cyber security. I think this is also very important. We have to cooperate between our countries in order to address those newly emerging challenges. And thank you also for adding in your last sentence that it is urgent. The sense of urgency is very important. Now, dear guests, I think that between the four of them, my panelists have set out a very good perspective on the bilateral relationship and also situated it in a broader context. Can we, for their initial remarks, give them once again a big hand, please? Dear audience, as our Member of Parliament has said, we have in the audience eminent personalities, business people. We have former ambassadors, former secretaries of foreign affairs. We have experts, economists, journalists, and we are very happy to particularly have Mr. Ashok Malik with us. He is advisor at the Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And if at one point of time you would also like to share your views, you are most welcome. But as you have seen, yes, okay. So as you have seen, I think that we are having a very good conversation and interactive. It will be interactive as well. So now I would like to open the floor, and would you please kindly introduce yourself and then just share your views, perhaps a recommendation which will be good for us to have as a takeaway, or a question to the panelists. Okay. So first, I will come to you. Where are the where are the mics, please? Mic কোথায়? Okay, Ambassador Shamshir Mubin Chaudhary. Yes, please. এই যে এখানে মাইক নেই ভাই? এটা কি ভাই, এখানে আসতে হবে আর কি। হ্যাঁ,
Thank you. I finally get a chance to ask a question or a point. I'll first start with a point to Joyita, old friend for a long time, and then to Shobosachi and comment on what Naeem Razak has said. First of all, Joyita talked about BBIN and BIMSTEC. Now, as we know that the BBIN, the chairman of the panel has said, Dr. Mustafi, that the BBIN has taken much longer than it should have, so which is not really a good sign. That means there are some hesitation, some reluctance, and how do we overcome it? Because if BBIN doesn't get implemented, it will impact on the progress of BIMSTEC as well and connectivity in general. There is a link between the two. I think we should learn a lesson from where BBIN has not moved as far as it should have moved, and how can we move forward on that. Coming to Mr. Shobosachi Dotto, you said there should be connectivity of the mind, and I fully agree with you. This is a relationship written in blood. I am a Muktijodha myself, so I know how deeply our history is embedded. Connectivity of mind also depends on the prevailing situation between the two countries. So there has been assurances given by the Prime Minister of India, by the Foreign Minister, and today, of course, by the Foreign Secretary, that both CAA and NRC are internal matters of India, and Bangladesh has nothing to worry. The fact remains that there are questions inside Bangladesh, as the Member of Parliament has very frankly said so. And I think one way to address this is to reduce the rhetoric in India when the name of Bangladesh comes up. That is what raises the concerns and questions here. Now, if you recall, our Honorable Prime Minister herself raised a question on the necessity of CAA. And I think by implication what she said that you are bracketing Bangladesh and Pakistan together, And this is all the more ironical because when Bangladesh broke away from Pakistan, India was very much a part of the whole process, of our partner, right? 50 years later, your law brackets India and Pakistan and Bangladesh together, which hurts the sentiments of the people of Bangladesh. We realize this is an internal matter, but the fact remains that at the political level, the rhetoric is not reduced, then I think there is some question. Dr. Mustafi very pointedly raised the question of SARC. Now let us not fool ourselves. SARC has a much higher brand value in Bangladesh than in BIMSTEC or anything else. And the last BIMSTEC meeting on energy connectivity, SARC was mentioned repeatedly as a model how we can move forward. So I would ask the member of the parliament, Bangladesh being the birth seed of SARC, could we not continue to have not summit, because even the India-Pakistan relationship, the summits are difficult, but standing committee, foreign secretary level meetings, perhaps even foreign ministers level meeting, which Kathmandu being the host, because Kathmandu is the chairman. I think Bangladesh should take the initiative to put SARC back on track, not at the cost of BIMSTEC, but along with BIMSTEC.
Thank you very much. You wanted, who was there? Yes, please. Over there, and Ambassador Hanan, I will bring you next. Yeah. এখানে দেন এই যে এখানে দেন না এই যে next Ambassador Hanan, yes, please be brief and please introduce yourself.
I am Major General retired Imamuzzaman. I am a freedom fighter of 1971. In order to promote trade, economic and technical cooperation, we need to first enhance our people-to-people friendship and cooperation. Perception of some of our people regarding Bangladesh-India friendship is not up to the expected level. Due to wrong mindset of some of our people, most of the cooperation programs do not achieve positive results. Can we think of some ways and means to improve the perception of the peoples of both the countries so that we can develop everlasting friendship?
Thank you. Ambassador Hanan. Yes, দিব আপনি রাখেন ওইটা হ্যাঁ yes.
Hello. Thank you, Chair. I believe that we are extremely benefited from the reflections of the panels, and we learned that, particularly Shaposhati suggested that we are at the pre-partition level of connectivity. The pre-partition level of connectivity was on the premise of, if I may say, enemy state perception. But why the leadership of both the countries are struggling or have been struggling to even revive that, I don't understand myself. Given the friendship, the bilateral relations of both the countries are rooted in the mingling of the blood in 1971 in the war field. So given that, the pillar of relationship, I again fully endorse the suggestion made by Shaposhati that we should have a neo-ecosystem of connectivity. It is absolutely the right perspective to look into how to define and articulate the bilateral relations. But there is one thing missing. Yes, tourism, religious tourism, or whatever, but I personally believe, having my experience to work in Calcutta, and I'm sure our panel, the Honorable MP, had the exposure to study in the top niche school in India. So why education sector is not opened enough, particularly the quality education? Why not you open your engineering medicine for the students of Bangladesh? Why you have to go to America or North America or Europe? That is my question to the Indian leadership. Then we believe that there are a lot of sensitivities, no doubt about it. Every country has its own priorities. The relationship is based on self-interest. We fully understand that. Canada and US has bilateral trade, I'm positive all of you are fully aware, $2 billion every day. Given their differences, to why Bangladesh and India is struggling to improve or promote bilateral trade, I don't understand on the basis of daily, even necessaries we can exchange, no problem. But India, please look into the sensitivities in terms of food supplies, even the onion, you know. There is a sensitivity, there is a public perception. We should do diplomacy on the basis of public perception also. The leadership should have a leverage if the mutual concerns, respective concerns are appropriately and timely addressed. My last point. Sabyasachi mentioned, or the other gentleman mentioned, that with the graduation itself is a problem for boosting bilateral trade because we will lose our DFQF facilities very soon. But why not India offers proactively the DFQF offers the continuity of DFQF even up to 2030. Because European Union did it by themselves, then it should be 2027. They extended 3 years as a transition time for the graduating countries. I think this is an area Indian leadership may kindly consider, to seriously consider, to offer this proactively so that it helps to bolster the bilateral trade and investment and everything. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador Hanan. Yes, please, the lady. Yeah, I have to bring some gender balance.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the panel. Thanks to the panel for a very intellectual and enlightening discussion this morning. Particularly, I would like to say, before I say something, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Shahreen Tiloktama. I am from the International Affairs Subcommittee, Bangladesh Awami League. I have picked up the discussion from Naeem Bhai, looking forward the relationship between two beloved countries. As we know that India, in terms of World Bank's ranking of ease of doing business, have done progressive improvement. From 2012 it was 142 and 2019 it has improved up to 63. In terms of Bangladesh, it is expected to be 179 in World Bank's ease of doing business ranking in 2020. In terms of having a sustainable development graduation within the developing countries bracket, Bangladesh is now looking forward to have a strongest economic growth, whereas young people should be the strongest contributor in this regard. So my opportunity I can see between two countries could be how we can extend our collaboration between young people to young people. Could be a relationship, a strategic partnership or programming between the Chamber of Commerce, the young entrepreneurs. I would also like to emphasize the young politicians who are interested in the commercial development and economic growth. We know, being a lawyer, I know that in India, the commercial legal practice and development has been also taken to a different growth. So we also would like to look into the commercial legal development. Again, would like to emphasize to achieve the Agenda 2030. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have someone over here. Yes, please. I'll come. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I am Abdul Awal, a former ambassador, now associated with the Maritime Think Tank. Now, I would like to ask the three panelists here, the representing three research organizations. The connectivity. MP Nahin Rajak has rightly mentioned about the private sector, their involvement. Now look at the connectivity that we have. In 2015 we have signed a coastal shipping agreement, then the use of two ports have been signed, then internal water connectivity that has been signed, and there is another proposal of the Panga, Chittagong and Krishnapatnam port, the interrelationship. But are we talking to the main stakeholder, the business community? Because they are the government can send some food or some development material. But to make this connectivity or the transshipment meaningful, it is the business community, they have to come, they have to make money, and then it can only go forward. And 2015 to 2020, if you take the reading, it doesn't give a, good picture. So what is the disconnect? Is the business people, they're not convinced about that they can make money, or is it that the more that we are doing, maybe the European model, it is not effective here, where unless the business sector come and use these routes and make money and make it going, this connectivity will be in a sort of, topic of
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you. I think that is a very important observation. Over here, please. Mr. Abul Hassan Chaudhary, our former minister. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to first of all congratulate the panel. We meet in the festive season, in the birth anniversary centenary of the greatest Bengali of all times, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And it is my very earnest hope that we reinvent the spirit of 71. On the very important issue sometimes where a fog is created between our relationship with India and that of China has been dealt with very comprehensively by our young and articulate Member of Parliament, Mr. Razak. That was in my mind and we did not go in for that. And in fact today China has a surplus with almost all the countries in the world. Name me a country that it doesn't have. Both in academic discourse and discourse in the tea stall, you categorize the relationship between nation states. As far as Bangladesh and India is concerned, in my view, neither is it transactional nor strategic, it is in fact existential. And I congratulate the panel once again that if I could distill the thoughts that has emanated from their discussion, it is precisely that. For instance, in the morning today, I was heartened, and I'm sure so must have been many, when the Foreign Secretary of India talked about the navigability of the rivers. This cannot be dealt with in isolation. Unless we revisit the question of sharing of the waters, this cannot be done. And my second and final point would be that paying our fullest respect to the spirit, to the philosophy, to the understanding of independent sovereign states dealing and deciding on their sovereign basis. I think the existential relationship which was forged by blood in 71 imposes an obligation on our two countries in particular, that if we want so much potential, and I shall only touch upon one, the significant, it can transform us, and that one I'm coming in a minute, that can transform our economy to a level higher than that of Europe. Higher than that of Europe, and the Admiral is here, which is if we can find grounds to cooperate in the blue economy. All of this is possible when we do not merely think of our sovereign status to make decisions, but there is a law called Rylands and Fletcher. I cannot grow something in my garden if the pollen from the garden goes and affects the garden of my neighbor. So it's not a neighborhood relationship between Bangladesh and India. It is a brotherly relationship. Therefore, there is an obligation that merely sovereign state decisions cannot be enacted. We must be sensitive to it. I shall not go any further. This is very learned academicians, they have understood the spirit. And sir, since you mentioned BIMSTEC as a very honored person who had the honor to sign on behalf of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina our induction in BIMSTEC, I feel sad that the progress after decades has been very slow, whereas this organization was meant to step aside from the hurly-burly world of politics and go straight into trade, into finance, into tourism, into commerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for drawing our attention to the blue economy. I think that we should start to say that Bangladesh territory is not only 144,000 square kilometer, it is 260,000 square kilometer, including the 116,000 or maritime boundary. I think that's the way to look at it. There was a lady over there. Yes, I will bring her. I had originally an intention to have a to and fro and bring the, after some time bring our panel. Just a second. But I have been warned that I will have to conclude this session because we have our lunch as well. So we will take at one go I will take, yes, there is someone at the very end after this lady, and then I think we will have to conclude.
Thank you for giving me...
Please, yeah.
Thank you for
if you can, yeah, in 1 minute, please.
Just 1 minute. If you can give me, thank you for giving me a floor. I'm Tasmia Nuhi Ahmed. I'm a lawyer practicing in High Court. So actually, I wanted to add a point with my colleague, Ms. Shireen, what she just told. Like in India, Indian High Commission is every year organizing a youth delegation visit to India from Bangladesh, where 100 youth delegates are going every year. So my request was if we can do something to engage more delegation team to visit India so that we can have more exchange of culture and we can get better connectivity among people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At the very end, yeah, please.
Pervez, thank you very much, sir. I'd be very brief.
Yes.
Pervez Abbasi, Assistant Professor of Economics, East West University. My question, we have been talking about the trade deficit between India and Bangladesh for a long time. India is a very big country, very big economy. Can't we start off on an experimental basis with states in Northeast India where we can have a free trade agreement? So let's take Tripura, let's take Manipur, let's take Assam, and with Bangladesh we have a free trade exchange, just like China does with states across Myanmar. So Bangladeshi businessmen invest over there, our goods go over there, they get assembled, and this is one, Bangladesh is a growing economy. India's economy is slowing down, and as a result, we cannot go into mainland India. Why don't you go into Northeast India? Because Northeast India requires development, and we have the capital. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali Ahmed. He is the CEO of our Bangladesh Foreign Trade Institute. Can you, someone please bring the mic here? Yeah. We will have to conclude regrettably, and I will have to give my panel at least, 1-2 minutes. Yes, I will bring you, and you will be the last. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Mustafa Rahman,
yes,
for giving me this opportunity. I won't be very long. I am trying to bring it back to just economics, away from politics, although political discussions and political implications are very important. You must all be knowing, or at least some of you must be knowing, that in the heels of Chinese offer of a free trade agreement with Bangladesh, India has come up with CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And things are in process, and some sort of an agreement is going to be signed very shortly. Now, if you go for a CEPA, comprehensive, that means not only free trade, but also
Comprehensive Economic Partnership
Agreement.
Yeah.
It means a free trade agreement, connectivity and everything, and you don't have a mutual recognition agreement. You say that your this organization is feed. Only 12 articles are accepted, 12 reports are accepted. So before preparing this, if you put the cart before the horse, I don't know where we go. I think that is why these two governments should sit together and decide on how they go ahead with these things. We fully agree that trade and all the connectivity and all these things should go very fast. In fact, faster than we are going now, although connectivity is moving quite fast now. So I think this signing a CEPA, I'm not against it, but if we are not prepared to trade in goods even, then how can we have this CEPA? I think it is it's time that we start thinking about it.
Thank you very much. Yes, and you will be the last. Okay, we have a young, and we have one young participant, so I will allow that. You will be the last, okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Mihir Biswas from Bangladesh Puribesh Andolan, Bangladesh Environment Movement and Puriganga Bacha Andolan. Only one proposal, that is we have Joint River Commission that deals with only water, but some other factors. So I can propose here to make or establish a joint environmental health commission. If possible, we can talk about other factors like coronavirus and other things, animal health, environmental flow, and other issues. They may be common issues for both countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that concrete proposal. Yes,
yeah, hello. I have stood up only to thank, because my comments was already shared by the lady lawyer. So I will only share a feeling of mine, which is probably, I believe, the feeling of all countrymen. This is Alauddin Ahmed. I was member of Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission. I am a broadcaster and also faculty. Looking at the work and words of Nahin Razak, Honorable MP, I believe that educated and enlightened, I stress more on the word enlightened, people should come in politics and start to become more active in this part of the world and that part in India. And if they sit together and start working with a real zeal, I don't think that the fear of being delayed by bureaucracy will not be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. This is Mr. Alamgir Hussain. I'm from Bangladesh Heritage Foundation, Research Director in charge. Sir, it's no matter of question that Bangladesh and India is a good friend, but we are still not happy because of our expectations, and as we are a good friend. And when we are talking about trade relationship or trade development of trade relationship, there are matters, there are instruments to develop the relationship. But my question is about how effective these instruments.
Okay.
For example, there are South Asian free trade agreement offered Bangladesh duty-free, quota-free market to India, but Bangladesh cannot accept these benefits. In case of transport, Bangladesh, the cost of transport is much more higher from Dhaka to Delhi than that of transport cost from Dhaka to US or Dhaka to European Union. Why? If there is trust between us, between friends, then why the cost of this transport increases? Our research says the reason behind this increase was the goods are being unloaded in no man's land and then reloaded because of checking. Because of checking, this cost increases. So if there is instruments, the relationship will not be developed because of this mistrust and some other issues. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. After the BBIN motor vehicle agreement is operationalized, I think that, and we have single window and interoperability of the systems across the borders, Benapol, Petrapol and other borders, I think that this will be resolved, hopefully. I will have to bring this to conclusion because I would like to give our panelists 1.5 to 2 minutes, but I have a card from someone and I am afraid that he can sue me. Siddiqui Bhai, MS Siddiqui, he is legal economist. So I wouldn't like to go out of this room without giving the legal economist his legal point of view to express. Please, yes, you will be the last one.
Actually, I am the only businessman here who intend to say something. You should listen from the horse's mouth when you are talking about the business and connectivity and development. Dr. Mahfouz says there are some non-tariff barrier and some perceived barrier. He did not elaborate what is perceived non-tariff barrier between export of Bangladesh product to India. So let me tell you, when India has imposed anti-dumping duty on jute, the export was declining, Bangladesh total export. Then they find an alternate source in other countries, in Africa and Europe. Now, again, the jute export is picking up. So thanks to India for imposing anti-dumping duty on Bangladesh jute. The second question, non-tariff and tariff barrier, you know that I am talking about the Jamdani Shari. You are also involved with this process. India has registered Jamdani as Upadhyay Jamdani. Interestingly, India is importing Jamdani from us. We are the producer of Jamdani Shari, and India is exporting Jamdani Shari to other countries. So they should cancel their illegal registration of Upadhyay Jamdani. They should allow Bangladesh to export our Jamdani to other countries. And as a businessman, I tell you, when somebody starts international trading, if you check their passport, you will see that they first approach, they go to India to initiate an international trade. Then they bounce back. Then they go to China. And they can't speak, we don't speak good English, and they don't understand English. So by body language, we started business. And now China is the biggest source of import for Bangladesh. So what are the non-tariff barriers? There is no time to elaborate much more. I have only given 2 points. So they should understand what are the non-tariff barriers, why people are bounced back from India and going to China for importing something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, এই যে ওনাকে দেন, হ্যাঁ বলেন দেখি আপনি this is the last because we have to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Please.
Good afternoon
1
to all.
minute.
Yeah. My point of view, I am as a politician, I don't want to ask any question, but simply just I'd like to tell one thing that here I have seen a lot of MPs, lot of ex-ambassadors, high commissioners, even some ex-ministers even. Why you are talking about this issue regarding Bangladesh, India, promoting future? My point of view, these occasions, especially why we are here today. Why we are here today? Because Honorable Prime Minister Modi is coming to Bangladesh. This is the main reason. That's why Foreign Secretary of India, Shingla, Honorable Foreign Secretary of India, Shingla ji, already came to Dhaka. My question to you, panelists from Bangladesh side as well as panelists from Indian side, we need to work together for betterment of Bangladesh economy and Indian economy as well. We have to work together in win-win situation. So, Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi is coming. So, what kind of position we have to develop ourselves? Right now, a lot of problems arising inside India. I don't want to go for more. Maybe you understood what I do mean. I mean, I must say, the little riot is already taken place in India. As a Muslim country, as a Hindu country, some sort of little problem is already taken place in India. So that by this time, President of US Trump already visited India. Problem was taken place before that. And right now, after 2 weeks, Modi is coming. So what kind of action should be taken from both the governments? What can be win-win situation? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, audience. We had very interesting questions, observations, comments from the audience. Those who have spoken, thank you very much. Those who have restrained themselves in spite of the fact that they had questions, thank you very, very much. I will now give our panel, each of them maybe 2 minutes, okay? Not more than that because, you know, we have, hungry man is an angry man, yeah. So, so please, yeah. And I will forego my concluding, remarks because we are already running out of time. Yes, Mahfuz?
Thank you very much. A lot of interesting comments that came from the floor. I will be focusing on the dynamics of the present world. I would say that the kind of service that we trade, both import and export side, is quite awful. We are in the verge of the fourth industrial revolution, but what we are importing and exporting. From India, we are exporting $303 million importing in electricity transmission. So, and in the next ranking, it's just road, freight, rail, shipping. So these are the top the items that we are importing from India. And on the export side, very awfully, office maintenance. This is the biggest item. It's $202 million that we are exporting. So what we are, we have in the basket of service trade. So we have to transform our in fact, trading regime of service, and in the coming years we have to have more of the human capital intensive service trading. So that is more required. So this is number one. Number two is basically we have to identify new area to increase the export to India. So new products, maybe one example is the cut flower. So it has a huge demand in India and the other side of the border, and also the fresh fruit. So there are other issues. There are other areas in which if we can identify, then it will increase the in fact employment because these are the employment intensive kind of sector. And one question that is a very important question, the point that came from the International Affairs Subcommittee of the Bangladesh Awami League, it's the legal in fact service. So now it's in the category of legal, accounting, management, consultancy and publication related. So it's 20 million that we are exporting to India, and it's in the 7th position in terms of export of service. So it can be in fact taken up. So it's kind of human capital intensive, and we in fact encourage this kind of service, the service that come from the in fact human capital. So that is in fact required.
Thank you. Thank you, Mahfuz. Subhashichi, please.
Yeah, it's a set of enlightening comments. I'd just like to re-emphasize, I think what the gentleman said, that the relationship with the seven sisters of the northeastern region of India has much more, there can be many more avenues to grow on there. In fact, the trade situation is very different with that region. And the Bangladesh of tomorrow and the world of tomorrow, I think if we look at Bangladesh as he rightly pointed out, in respect to the blue economy, the entire narrative goes to a totally different level. And I think we need to take India-Bangladesh relations to the next level by including those aspects. And a clarification when I said about pre-partition, it was just the connectivity of railways and roads. It was not about anything else, essentially.
Yeah. Thank you. I fully understand that you meant, the pre-partition connectivity. Yeah, Joyita, please.
I feel we really have to understand. I see a lot of hope when it comes to Indo-Bangladesh and connectivity. And we have to understand the global arena, the time we are talking about. When people, after the Brexit event, people are becoming more inclusive. They are looking towards inwardly looking. At that time, we are thinking how to expand our relationship, how to do things together. And this is a very positive time. We also have to realize where we were and where we have achieved. These realities need to be recognized when we are talking. So this is a very, and then our effort also, we have to think how we can do things better. So these realities need to be, when we are talking about Indo-Bangladesh relations, these realities need to be put up front, and then we have to see the relationship. And if you really want to create a graph of Indo-Bangladesh relationship, you can see the positive development that is taking place forward. So I don't think we should be really upset. Rather, we should be more optimistic about the India-Bangladesh relationship. Also, I will try to touch upon the BBI answer. Again, I will take the experience of Brexit. People are breaking whatever it was, and we are giving a lesson. So those negotiations will take some time, sir. We have to take those things. But there is a very positive thing that is happening in South Asia. And I think Bangladesh, India, lot of youth, actually we have resolved the land boundary agreement, and we can show the light for the world together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member of Parliament.
I can understand that there is a lot of enthusiastic personals up here in the opening session. I think the hall room was full of people. So I guess the interest generated between Bangladesh and India is, of course, of foremost importance. I think we all do agree with it. Now, at times we have to be patient. That's also very true. At the same time, we also have to realize the challenges that exist. Work towards the commitments that exist from our national side and of course from the other counterpart as well. So when we talk about connectivity, when we talk about people-to-people connection, when we talk about collaboration, of course, one and the other has to actually be at par and we have to work together. So that mindset needs to be there in the first place. So that's one thing. The second part being is, of course, a lot of my colleagues are here, members of parliament, politicians, academics, stakeholders, government officials and so forth. We have to understand that this generation that we do represent, we are a bit very impatient. We want to think everything in the aspect of private sector. So we want to be like now, and we want to see it now. But a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of red tape aspects do exist. And when we talk about internal, that's another aspect. When we talk about external, of course, there's way more things, more and more negotiation which is going on. So we have to be pragmatic, we need to be positive, and the most important thing that I have highlighted and want to actually highlight as well, that there is a lot of things which is happening in the last 10 years, which has happened. A lot of cultural exchanges. I see a lot of cultural activists, participants, practitioners are here. A lot of exchange of cultural aspects. Bangladesh and India has happened, is happening more. A lot of business community engagement has happened. We have had Bangladesh-India Chamber, which has worked well. The FBCCI, the president of FBCCI was present. We are doing a lot more as well. But then again, we need to see, as one of the questions came up, and one of the panelists also do agree that we need to initiate something innovative, such as sub-regional collaboration in terms of the Northeast Asia and Bangladesh, to have trade partnerships and investment opportunities so that we can explore more. So that's another aspect we can definitely indulge. I have had the pleasure, sorry, I'm just taking a little bit more. I've had the pleasure of meeting the Chief Minister of West Bengal on one of our trips. Joita, she was very much engaged, and we did explore, and we mentioned that why not, the Northeast, in fact, including Orissa, to be given a portfolio with Bangladesh for our business community to invest. So that's one of the things maybe the central government of India can explore that idea, so to speak. And finally, the aspect engagement. We do lack communication, transfer of communications. The last time our Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Honorable Sheikh Hasina, she went to visit, official visit to India. We signed numerous agreements, but then again there was a huge kind of backlash from the national newspapers, online and offline, and print media regarding some of the agreements, not knowing exactly what the terms and conditions were. So these are also very important issues. So my request would be also from the High Commission of India and the Government of India to be more kind of informative, to explore more engagement, so that we understand and our community understands what terms and conditions that we are going in. And finally, we need to see eye to eye, we need to be at par, and we need to see equal, so that our long-lasting relationship that is very much embedded, as many of us have mentioned, since the inception of this country, under the leadership of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, to strengthen this relationship and to be transparent and to see eye to eye and make things work for a positive Bangladesh and India relationship. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will just take a couple of minutes. I will not try to round up and share with you the takeaways. I think we have all done our homework, and we have taken the notes, and it will be there. Thank you very much for sharing. I would like to, sharing your views, I would like to say that our Member of Parliament has mentioned that we would like to be optimists, and I think that that's what matters. Optimists see opportunities in challenges. Pessimists see only challenges in opportunities. So I think that the perspective is very important. And we cannot begin to resolve the challenges of and the opportunities of 21st century with mindsets of 20th century. I think we have to look forward, and as he very rightly mentioned, and our panel also have stated in their observations, that there are a number of very good things which are, which have been taken by this government. I think that the key issue is to implement them expeditiously. And sometimes when people ask, when should we do this? I think the answer should be yesterday. because time is running out. And if we lose our opportunities today, others will be, taking those opportunities. Nature abhors vacuum. Some of the issues which are, raised here, very good suggestions. The anti-dumping duty was resolved, and we hope that the other, with regard to jute also, will be resolved. We have to do our own homework also. With regard to the Jamdani, we didn't have the GI registration protocols in place in Bangladesh. So now we have it. So I think that we have to do our own homework also in order to realize the potential opportunities of bilateral cooperation. So let's also be aware about our task which we have to do. And then there were also a number of very good suggestions. One suggestion which came was with regard to the LDC graduation. India offers duty-free, quota-free now. Whether we can extend it, we know that some of the countries have extended it beyond, including European Union, for 3 additional years. So those are the issues which I think the policymakers should also discuss when the Honorable Prime Minister of India will be coming here. I was a part of the Transport Connectivity Committee, which was set up by this government in 2011, and there were a lot of enthusiasm at that time. But we haven't been able to really realize the connectivity between Bangladesh and via Bangladesh from western to eastern part through the through Ashuganj River Port connectivity, because we haven't been able to build up the infrastructure. And it was very rightly mentioned in the first session, in the inaugural session, that in spite of the 3 lines of credit, we have now only started to complete the first line of credit, which was given in 2010. The second line of credit was given in 2015. The third was in 2018. So I think that we have to do also our own homeworks with the urgency that needs, so that we can realize the potentialities that we have. So thank you very much for being such good audience, and our panel was excellent. Along with you, I thank our panel, and along with our panel, I thank you. Thank you.